Hi, we're going to look at texture today and how you can create texture using different art media and also using collage too. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just look at how you can create texture using pencils. So it really goes back to when you're mark making and doodling, and you can really just scribble away and you can create very dense marks, very close together marks, or they can be quite open, and you can create texture in drawings in that way. So that's the first thing I'd like you to consider this morning, and then you can try with a pen. So it really goes back to what we've done before, but it doesn't do any harm just to repeat exercises and think about them in a different way as well. So using a gel pen, and you might want to add a little bit of water to that like we've done before. So take a brush, not too much water on the brush, and then just add a bit of water because it just all helps with the texture. So we'll just leave that brush on there and I'll just hold that up to show you. So that's a very, very quick exercise in doodling and creating texture. So you can create any marks, you don't have to just scribble like that, you can do any marks you want to. The next exercise involves a bit of paint. So for this, I've got some I've done here to show you. Really easy to do, and I hope you can see these because there's lots of different things in there. I've used fabric, I think I've used tea and rice and sugar and flour, and I've written underneath what they are. Very easy to do. So all I've done with this one is I've used acrylic paints. Acrylic paints are the best because they're the thickest of the paints, and you could use the acrylic paints on their own for this, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Or you can mix in, as I say, you can mix in sand, you could mix in, we've got things like herbs, I've got lentils here, flour, all sorts of things. So lots of fun to do that one. And then the other thing to do is with the paints, you can use card at the bottom to create texture. So using card to scrape off the paint and create lines, mark make with the paint. And this one here, you can hopefully see that, that's using fruit. So you can use a lemon or an orange or an onion, although it's a bit strong really, but you can use that as well to create texture. So the first thing to do is to get a nice big brush, and I've just got some acrylic paint here, and it doesn't matter which colour you use really, just for this exercise. And I'm going to mix into the paint a bit of the herbs. It smells quite nice too actually. So I'll just pour a few herbs in there and mix that together to create the texture. And it's a great way for if you were painting something like a landscape and you wanted some texture, or it really anything. I mean, it could be a portrait where you want to create texture, and that simply is all there is to it. With the card, you can take a piece of card, just if you want quite a stiff piece of card, and you can either dip that into the paint, so I could dip it in and then mark make, creating lots of lines. Or the other way to do this is lots of fun, this great fun. The other way to do this is you can apply your paint to the paper first. So plenty of paint on the paper, and then a bit like when you're doing oil painting actually, you can scrape and mark make into it to create lots of amazing textures. Really nice if you're doing this on a large scale as well, so that's something we'll look at doing too later on. But it's great to do this in a sketchbook first of all, just to get an idea and get a feel for it. So really, really easy to do and lots of fun really. You can add things like structure gel, or we've got things like a printing medium. But I wouldn't rush out to buy anything like that because it's very expensive, and we have that at, anyway at the studio, so you'll be able to use that when you come into the studio. You could also use a sponge. Sponges are great for creating lots of texture too, and you can build it up really quickly. So explore the paints because it's lots of fun, and you can see already the texture that I've built up there. So that's the first exercise I'd like you to do. And then the next exercise, I'd like you to look at, well, choose one of the beetles or one of the insects, and I'd like you to do some collage with that. So with this, you'll just need some plain paper. So I've just got like photocopy paper, but I've actually got a coloured paper here so that you can see it. If I had white, you wouldn't be able to see it very well. And then you want a selection of papers or tissue papers. So I've got some yellow tissue paper, which is quite nice, and I've also got some wallpaper here as well. You could even use a bit of kitchen towel too. So just grab some of this. So I've got some old wallpaper, which is quite nice to use as well. And what we're going to do first of all, I'd like you to think about, on this page here, I've got some. I'm going to hold these up to the camera, but they are white on white, so I hope you can see those. And it really is about exploring what you can do with the papers. So I want you to cut and tear and collage and screw the paper up to create textures too. That's the first thing I'd like you to do. So you can cut like holes in the paper as well, all sorts. And then when we've done that, I'd like you to have a go at doing some collage. So if you draw your insect like this one here. Now with this one, what I've done actually, I've laid the papers down first, and then I've drawn the insect over the top. So that's quite a nice way of working. So you could try that. And then alternatively, you could do the opposite. You can draw the insect and then collage the papers into it. And I'm just going to do a quick one just to show you how I would do that, because it sounds simple and it is actually quite simple, but I think the way you go about it really makes a difference. So I'm just going to use this page here. I'm just going to do a quick sort of beetle shape, so it's going to be very, very quick, just so that I can show you what I mean. So just the outlining the shape in pen, and then I want you to think about the papers and the textures, and you're going to add those to this insect that we've drawn. But to do this, one of the things I want you to bear in mind is not to have like big clumps of paper like this, but make it quite flat to the surface, but like it's still very textured. So you can just use a glue stick for this, or you could use PVA. So if you coat the paper with the glue stick, and if you've got a good one, it works perfectly well. And screw the paper up and then carefully just glue that down. But I would do it so that it's still quite flat, and you might even want to, if we take our brush with the water on it, just add a bit of water to that and actually really make sure that's glued down well. It does make a difference, I think, in the long run. And so try screwing the paper up, try tearing pieces off. When you do this, do it so that you've got quite small pieces of paper, and think about where you're going to lay this down. So I might lay a piece down around the edge. So for example, if you wanted to create a bit of shading, you might choose a darker piece of paper and then just lay it down at the side to create a bit of shading, and add a bit of water again just to make sure it's stuck down really well. You don't want any bits sticking up because it just doesn't look as nice really. And so try tearing it, try cutting bits with the scissors, so try cutting small pieces with scissors. And the other thing you can do is just flaky pieces. So think about what you did in the first exercise when you're exploring the papers and what you can do with them, like with the cutting and tearing and creating shapes, and then apply that to your drawing. So that's really what I'd like you to do. And you can use different colours to create tone and texture. So let's see what we've got here. We've got a pink one here. Let's cut that one as well. And then I'll lift this up in a second and I'll show you. So I'm going to cut a piece off there. And I'm just going to cut small pieces. When you've done this, you could even draw back into it using a pen. So using your gel pen, or you could try using a combination of the techniques. So you could try some of the paint with the mixed in herbs, or whatever you want to use. Actually, just try something different. Right, just add a bit of water to that, make sure it's stuck down well, and make sure there aren't any stray bits where I don't want them to be. And if there are, just take them off and move them around the paper. So I'll hold this up. I mean, this is very, very quick, and obviously you can spend a lot more time on it to create more colours and textures. But I think it's quite a nice way to build up a really interesting surface and something quite different. And I think also it stops you from being quite precious about your drawing, because sometimes when you're drawing something it can become quite intense and we want it to be perfect, whereas when you're working like this it's a bit random really. You don't know how it's going to turn out. So I think it's quite exciting. It's quite a good way of working, and I think it helps to sort of free up the way you work, and you can end up being a lot more spontaneous with your marks. So have a go at those techniques and really explore them and see what you can do with them and have fun with it.